Perfect. So, Anni-Mari, thank you again for making the time to chat with us today. We're really excited here at GoLove to get to know you a little bit better, dive into your expertise, and learn a little bit more about your perspectives on the world of love and dating. So, we're going to start off with just learning a little bit more about yourself. So, would love to hear you tell me a little bit about your background and what led you to become a dating and relationship coach.
Hello, and thank you for having me. My name is Anni-Mari, and I'm trained in Gottman Method couples therapy. I'm a relationship coach, and I'm also a career counselor. And what got me started in the world of love and relationships is really just understanding that there is so many tools available that we are usually not necessarily provided from our home environments. Not all of us are lucky enough to get that from our home environments, how to have healthy relationships. And fortunately, we have a lot of tools available from the world of research and evidence-based methods that we can use. And most of it's actually quite simple, just change of habits and behaviors that we can use on a daily basis, and we can really improve the quality of our relationships.
Amazing. That's really great to hear. And I would love to hear a little bit about, based on your time working in the dating and relationship space, what is the personal philosophy or approach that you've developed when it comes to guiding people in their relationships?
Yeah. So my personal philosophy or approach for guiding people is really the understanding that we can all have healthy relationships. We can all improve relationships if there is willingness, and we can learn the specific tools that we can use for that. We start from the space of love and understanding. And if both people, when we're talking about a relationship that has two people in it, then both people are committed and willing to work on it, then there is no reason why it shouldn't work.
Yeah, and it's all about sharing those tools and tactics to help people get there.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So I'll start off with a question related to your clientele and dating as a whole, with a question on the current dating landscape. So, in today's fast paced dating world, what unique challenges do professionally successful women, particularly aged 25 to 45 ish, face when it comes to
Mhm.
finding a compatible partner?
Oftentimes, what I've seen is that these highly successful women, they spend too much time chasing for the wrong thing in relationship, or let's say looking for love from the wrong places as well. So instead of having that very clear approach, how we're going to approach the dating like you have for your professional life, they are sometimes just wandering around, let's say in darkness, and spending too much time in relationships, partnerships, dating with people that are actually not compatible or not in the same space where they are. And then my recommendation is always to get very clear about what do you actually want, what kind of relationship you want, what kind of partnership you want. And then based on that, we can actually make a plan how you're going to get there. So not to waste time with something that's not aligned with your path and your vision for yourself and your life and your vision for your relationship.
Yeah, that's so important. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about what kinds of tools you use to actually help women identify what's important to them. What are their values? What should they be prioritizing when it comes to looking for a partner?
Yeah, I usually use this approach that we first go back to see what has been working and what hasn't been working in the past. So we really deep dive into the previous relationships and also sometimes in the childhood, because that's where our attachment style starts from, and then our ability to connect with other people starts from relationships from our childhood. So we need to go back there and see, why are you not where you want to be? And then, of course, we need to also go and see, where would you like to go? Because if you don't know where you're going, you end up nowhere, right? So that's one very important thing, is to identify, where do you want to end up. So that's why I said it's important also to identify the vision for yourself, for your life, for your relationship. What kind of partner do you want? What kind of partner are you currently? And what can you change? How can you become the partner that is appealing to the kind of partner that you're looking for as well? So doing that type of work of identifying the past, the future, and then what can we do in the present moment to get there?
It's so true because there's so much knowledge and insight you can extract when you actually take the time to reflect on your past. What kinds of patterns have you showed? What have
Absolutely.
you liked in the past? What have you gravitated towards? And there's so much
Yeah.
insight and value in actually doing that self exploration.
Yeah. Like one of my clients had this very interesting realization that she said after working with me sometimes. She was like, wow, it really seems like I've been in the same relationship with different people. Like it's actually the same type of person over and over again because she hadn't done the work and realizing what is attracting her to that specific type of person and why it's not healthy for her as well.
Yeah, and there's so much in our subconscious that can kind of guide us towards the same type of person, force us to repeat similar
Yeah,
patterns. And it's not until you do that self work and that self exploration that you can uncover those patterns, uncover those things and motivations that might be hidden within your own psyche.
absolutely. Yeah, it all starts from the awareness and the willingness to do the work and willingness to change.
Absolutely, it does. So, next, I want to ask you a question about feminism and relationships. So,
Mhm.
some argue that feminism has complicated modern relationships. What's your take on how feminist ideals impact the dating experiences of women in their late 20s to mid 40s?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question because I'm based in the Middle East, in UAE, Dubai. So I have a very wide pool of different nationalities and different religions, and we have over 90% of expats here from all kinds of different nationalities. And so I can see how new ideas and old ideas are sometimes clashing. And because I have so many different international clients as well, I can say that feminism, like in the very basic sense of equal rights for everyone, is very important. But then also depending on the traditional roles of man and woman in the household, for example, and who pays the bills and who gets to stay at home with the kids and things like that. Yeah, it all comes down to do this individual communication between during actually the dating phase. And the number one thing is as well for you as a woman, when you are going out to meet men and dating, then you need before that you also need to understand what kind of relationship you want and what kind of shared workload are you expecting, and if you actually expect a man to pay for the dates or not. So you need to kind of know what you expect and what is important for you, because I know many women expect that the man is going to pay for the first date at least, and some women still expect the man to pay for all the dates. And some people like to share the bill, and some people, have very strong opinions about that. So it's important to get clear about that and then also communicate it and discuss that.
Yeah, because
So
progressive
you know that
ideals,
you're on the yes, that you know that you're on the same page.
yeah,
Sorry? So
definitely.
progressive ideas?
I was going to say idealizing this more progressive way of being when it comes to dating and kind of ditching double standards, it really is a bit of a journey,
Hmm.
right? And everyone's at a different point on that
Absolutely.
journey. Some people are all the way there in terms of ditching double standards. Some people are maybe
Hmm.
just starting to open up their mind to a different way of doing things or more traditional. So it's so important to be able to
Hmm.
communicate what your ideals are and where you stand in that journey towards a
Yes.
more progressive way of being, if that's what you choose to partake in.
Exactly. And then also understanding that like that those are the kinds of things that a woman has to, or also a man or whoever is dating in this dating process, to pay attention to in your partner. Like how do they show up? What are their values? And this is the line. Because if you are expecting someone to pay for your drinks or your meals and the other person is not interested in that, then this is not a match. And then you shouldn't hope that you're going to change their mind at some point, or if it's ever going to change.
Absolutely. And it's important to have those conversations up front.
Hmm.
So, you mentioned that you're based in Dubai. So, another thing that I'd love to
Hmm.
talk a little bit about is intercultural dynamics. I know Dubai is such a melting pot of
Yeah.
a city. So, for Western educated Middle Eastern women who are
Hmm.
in relationships, what advice do you have for navigating the complexities of different cultural backgrounds, especially when it comes to communication and conflicts?
Yes, this is definitely something that needs to be discussed. in advance during that dating phase, or also depends on the family backgrounds. I have some clients from very traditional family backgrounds that from the Middle East that don't have that concept of dating at all. It just doesn't exist. So how do you get to know the person, right? And so often is that you end up in this relationship with someone or getting married with people that you don't actually know very well. And for us from the Western world, it can be difficult to understand that, but this is the reality today, and it's still happening, and it's totally normal in a lot of parts of the world. And then this is where we need to learn how to communicate and how to talk about what is important for us, and also our how to manage that conflict. We need to learn the tools how to manage the conflict, and the most important thing would be how to de-escalate your conflict. So because conflict is normal, it always happens, and between two people, especially in a relationship, and then you need to find the right tools. And this is where I come in play as well. I can help with that, to how to really manage so that this conflict, little fights, doesn't get out of hand and rip the relationship apart.
Yeah, and
Because there is
communication.
tools available. Yes,
Yeah, and
how
communication,
to.
across cultures in conflict, that's a lifelong skill, not just one that applies to
Mhm.
relationships. So the sooner you
Absolutely,
learn to master it, start to learn some best practices, the better you're better
absolutely.
able you're going to be
Yes.
to apply that.
Yeah, just to how to express your needs, how to first get clear about your needs, what you need from a relationship and from your partner, and then how you're going to express it so that the other person can understand and how and can meet it, can
Absolutely.
meet your needs.
So now I want to move over to the topic of commitment. Do you
Mhm.
think that societal pressure on women to be successful in their careers has inadvertently affected their ability to commit or to find committed partners in relationships?
I think so. I think it's a sad reality that it often happens that when women has the focus on the career, then they unfortunately don't always have the time or the ability to put the same type of attention to their relationship. Because what we've seen historically is that when the roles are reversed, like for men, even when they are following their career path and then they have a relationship and a supportive wife, then that can actually help them. Whereas women, when they to get married earlier and start have kids, then that's something that's actually keeping them from progressing in their career, unfortunately, many times. And then in this type of situation, many women decide that they focus on the career, and then the relationship is something that gets the backseat. And then at some point, they might realize that they're not actually getting they're not having the type of, let's say, life balance between their work and their, like, between their career goals and their goals for their family life. It's not aligned.
Yeah, because you hear all the time this talk of the modern woman who can do it all, who can balance her career
Hmm.
and find the perfect relationship, maybe have kids one
Hmm.
day. And it really is
Hmm.
difficult unless you take the time to create your list of priorities, figure out what's important to you,
Hmm.
and also create some kind of a plan as to how you're going to manage all of these demands without going into a state of overwhelm and panic.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing is also that as women, biologically, we are a little bit more limited by the time that we have to reproduce if that's what we choose to do, and that's what if that's important for us. Unfortunately, it's not the same for men. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to move back to the topic of communication challenges in
Mhm.
relationships. What communication patterns have you observed in successful women's relationships, and how do these patterns contribute to either the success or the challenges in their love lives?
I would say that the most important thing in any relationship is how the topic has been raised. So you have basically two ways of raising, let's say, complaints. And by complaint, I mean something that's bothering you, something that you're not happy about in the relationship. And the studies have shown that women are the ones that majority of the time are actually raising any topic in the when it comes to relationship if they're not happy about it, because men generally tend to keep quiet and they're not so open to start to talk about things that they're not so happy about. Just the difference between the sexes. And in the as a woman, you have two ways. You can either kind of go as an attack and start basically criticizing, saying what's wrong straight away, which unfortunately puts your partner on a defense mode, and then that's how conflicts usually escalates and don't end up in a good way. Or you have a choice of starting this, let's say, complaint, starting what is actually bothering you in a soft way. What we call the soft startup in the Gottman Method is basically you start by saying what is wrong, but instead of saying it in an attacking way, you say what would be the change that you would like to see, and state your needs. What would you like to see happening, and use it in a soft approach. This generally has a much better way of getting your needs met than going for the attack.
And could you expand a little bit about maybe some of the consequences of taking more of that attack approach to communication? Maybe talk a little bit about in male identifying individuals, what happens in their psyche when they feel attacked?
Well, actually, criticism it's not only for the male psyche, but it's for anyone. If you because what happens is that you tend to take it personally because you feel like someone's telling you that, for example, like you're lazy or you're dirty or you're late, things like that, puts you automatically in a defense mode because you feel like your personality, who you are as a person, is being attacked and it's not good enough. And of course, this is one of our basic fears of not being good enough and not being loved. And that's why all these things are coming on the surface. And that's why this is something that is actually blocking your ability to receive and to respond in any other way than defensively.
Definitely, definitely. And it's so true. That is a universal thing, right? It's not just about men. It's people don't like to be criticized. People don't like to have their ego attacked. So it's really
You
important to be
know,
mindful in how you're actually approaching issues, conflict, challenges in a relationship.
yeah, and that's where the self-awareness comes in again, because when you start to think about, is this like when you before you say something, you even just take a moment to think, how would I feel if my partner said the same thing to me? And then
Yeah.
if you actually go ahead and say that, and then you think like, maybe I would also not like that so much. And
It
maybe
can
if
be,
maybe there's a better way to say it.
yeah, when you're
You
in
were
the
saying
heat of the
something?
moment, it's so easy to victimize yourself and just think this is, me that's dealing with this problem and therefore I get to lash out.
Yeah.
But that's not the case, The person on the receiving end is still human and they're still owed the same level of respect that you would expect.
Yeah, and the most important thing to remember while in conflict and even before, just something that's very, very important is that while you're in this conflict, it shouldn't be me against you, or it's like you and I against the problem, whatever it is. So we should still stay as a team and we're going to tackle that problem, whatever it is, together.
I love the phrase team mentality. I think it's so important to look at your
Mhm.
partner as a partner, not an adversary.
Absolutely, it's so important. So important.
So, we've spent the last couple of minutes talking about relationships and communication in relationships. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the unique issues of single successful women.
Hmm.
So, for single successful women in their 30s, plus or minus a few years, how can they balance their professional achievements with the desire for a meaningful and committed relationship? And are there any trade offs that they might need to consider?
Yes, definitely. Um, I'm going back to the same thing of saying that the most important thing is getting clear about what you want and what are the priorities here. If you're now ready, you feel like you're ready to have a family, then of course you need to understand that maybe that requires your career to take a little pause or how you're going to manage that. And and then another thing is also understanding that where are the trade-offs, right? Are you going to take the time from away from the career now to focus on the family, or to create a family, or are you going to decide that maybe that's not for me? Because many times nowadays we see that as well, that many women decide that they actually don't want to have a family, and that's okay too. So just getting clear about that what is it that you actually want and not what the society is expecting from you or of you. I think that's one of the very important things to do.
Definitely, definitely. And moving back to the idea of being in a relationship and the topic of
Mhm.
commitment, when we talk about successful women, we find that, or it can be said that many successful women find themselves in relationships where partners seem less committed. What
Mhm.
strategies do you recommend for these women to address and potentially resolve these types of issues?
I think the number one thing that they should do is to actually understand that is this person that I'm in a relationship with, are they ever going to be able to meet my need for this commitment? Are they wanting the same thing from life than I do? And it's important to have that discussion with your partner and understand, are you on the same page? Do you see future for together? Or because if your partner is not able to tell you that they see a future with you, then sometimes you have to face the harsh truth that maybe this is not the right partner for you. And that's why it's very important to also for yourself to have set some deadlines. Like how long are you going to invest into this relationship to see if it's going to lead to what you're looking for. If you're looking for marriage, this is especially important. If you're looking to have a family, and and then if that partner is not on the same page, then unfortunately, sometimes it's time to just count your losses and move on. But at other times, your partner is not even aware of that. Then it's important to talk about that and see if they are actually what do they want.
Yeah, and if a woman does find herself in a situation where she's
Hmm.
experienced infidelity in a relationship, and has a
Hmm.
partner had a partner cheat on her, whether physically, emotionally, do you think that's
Hmm.
something that a couple can bounce back from? Is that something that's worthwhile working on? What kinds of advice do you offer to women who are facing that kind of an
That
issue?
Yeah, that really depends on the situation. And number one thing is that how the affair or cheating happened and how do the partner address it? Are they feeling remorseful? The number one thing is if they actually regret it and they're feeling remorseful and they're willing to do the work to win back the trust or not. Because if there is no remorse and willingness to work towards that, then there is no relationship there anymore. But if the partner who has done the cheating and the affair, if they are willing to do the work and really work on now win back the trust, because what happens is that the relationship that you had until now is gone. It's not anymore. So you need to rebuild the new relationship from scratch. And that takes a lot of rebuilding trust and rebuilding the foundation that was totally crashed when that infidelity happened. And it takes a lot of work, and then both partners need to be committed, and the one who did the cheating, this partner really needs to be willing to do the work to win back the trust.
Definitely. And it goes back to your point. It really does depend on the circumstances, what that specific
Hmm.
scenario looked like. There isn't necessarily a
Hmm.
yes, you should take them back or no, you shouldn't. It really needs to play by
Yeah,
ear. Also gauge the person's willingness to correct their mistakes and do their
yeah,
best to make it.
yeah. Because if someone has cheated and then after that they are not even they're blaming you for overreacting, or they're saying that it's not such a big of a deal, or they say that they are not doing anything anymore, but they're hiding their phone or doing any other things that is actually not constructive for rebuilding the trust. Then this is unfortunately not helping in rebuilding that trust and rebuilding that relationship. And that person is not ready to actually have that level of commitment to the new relationship that you were supposed to be building now together.
Definitely, definitely. And I want to talk a little bit about the topic of independence. So,
Hmm.
some argue that the pursuit of independence can hinder relationship success. Do you think there's a healthy balance between independence and interdependence that successful women should strive for in their love lives?
Mm, yes, definitely. I think that like you need to, of course, you need to stay independent, especially financial independence is very important for women and for anybody really, but women get into the vulnerable position while having children, and it's important to have that level of financial independence as well. But in general, it is important to maintain your own life and friends, and at the same time, you as a couple should create something which is called a couple bubble. That is actually something that you kind of like create your own space for you two, that makes the other person that you're in a relationship with, makes that a priority and the relationship a priority. And you always know that you two are kind of like us against the world attitude, so that you know that your partner is always on your side. You face the world together.
Definitely. It's so important to be able to do that and also recognize that there is a space for independence in a relationship without it, overstepping and becoming a me versus you. There's still a space for interdependence
Yeah.
and independence.
And it's very important to have a partner that is supporting your dreams and who's supportive of your independence and your ability to chase your dreams. Because if you end up in this relationship with somebody who is not comfortable with your having your independence, with chasing your dreams and maybe spending time with your friends, then that's actually turning toxic.
Definitely, definitely. And that's definitely something that you need to look out for, right? Be aware of those red flags and be able to
Yes.
navigate when you see them.
Hmm.
So I have one more question on dating and
Hmm.
relationships more broadly before I finish off with a couple of questions about you. I want to ask
Hmm.
you a little bit about the future of dating and relationships. So, as we look ahead, how do you envision the dating landscape evolving for professionally successful women? Are there trends or shifts that you anticipate might negatively affect their relationship dynamics or positively affect their relationship dynamics?
It seems to me that people are moving away from the dating apps and moving more into meeting people in real life, because there's kind of this fatigue of dating apps and this very superficial type of meeting people. And I feel like this is something, one of the trends that also, if you can have any type of like networking slash meeting people in a networking environment. And that's something that seems to be happening at the moment. It's one of the current trends. And control for women, that they're in control of their dating lives rather than, because when you're in this dating app culture and this hookup culture and having that type of mentality of being always chosen.
Because with us, it can feel like you just see a carousel of people. You can say no to one, another
Yes,
person will pop up, and it's so easy to lose sight of the fact that these are real people, right? These are real
yes.
people that have a whole story behind them, and you can't simply judge them off of, a 2-second view of their profile.
Yeah, and it seems like people are really tired of that. I've seen that with my clients as well, that they say that they're just so tired of these dating apps, and they get tired of dating at all. But then I'm saying that you can actually look at it from a totally different point of view as well. You can put the dating app aside and just try to meet people in real life. And I've seen that a lot of people are actually going that way now, and kind of like opening up to meeting in an old fashioned way, just like walking up to people in a gym or in a networking a situation, and even in the office, and trying to just, do it in an old fashioned way.
Yeah, we've talked so much about Zoom fatigue in the wake of COVID over the last
Hmm.
few years. I think dating app fatigue
Yeah,
is also a really real thing.
absolutely. Yeah.
So now I'll finish off with just a couple questions about yourself. The first of which will
Mhm.
be I just want to hear a little bit about what your favorite aspect of being a dating coach is and why.
My favorite aspect is really seeing people grow and seeing people when they come to me and they have this understanding and idea. And then during these sessions, they actually start to look at things maybe a little bit differently, or they open up and they after some time, they have so much more self-confidence and they have so much more understanding how much power they have in a relationship, or even being single and going after a relationship, and really seeing that change. That's something that really inspires me, and seeing that evolvement and growth.
Yeah, shifts in perspective are so powerful, right? Because they really do have the ability to alter the way that we approach situations, we interact with people, and
Yes,
just approach life as a whole.
yes. And it's just you usually you're not really able to come up with the same type of understanding and realizations on your own oftentimes. You just need this kind of like a soundboard that can ask the right questions and make you think in the right direction to create that growth.
Yeah, and there's also so much power in actually articulating out loud what's going on in your brain. It can get so messy when you have all
Absolutely.
these thoughts swirling around, but to actually speak them out loud, articulate them, be able to, construct a coherent story as to what's going on in your
Yeah,
head, there's so much power in that alone.
absolutely. And then you have someone who's asking the right questions and giving you the right tools. That is something that really helps because you can also have the same conversation with your friend, but unfortunately sometimes the friends are not giving the best advice, even if they want to. It can be actually something that's not in the long run is not something that can benefit you, unfortunately. Sometimes they do, of course, but I've seen many times that the friends, unfortunately, are not able to give you the type of advice that you need in the situation sometimes
Definitely.
that can
There's so
take you
much value in
forward.
having a professional.
Mhm.
And then I'll just ask you to finish off with a share. I'd love to hear about your most memorable success story from your coaching career that's maybe left a really significant impact on you.
Yeah. Um, I'm just, I need a moment to think how I'm going to share it in a way that it's not going to reveal too much
Take your
about my clients because, yeah, it's maybe if I just tell you like the overall in general, what I've seen the most, like I said already, was like basically someone who comes to me that is very not in a good place. And then after some time, I see them kind of really bloom and really getting the confidence and really understanding what they want and going after that. And even within the relationship as well, when they come and they just cannot get along, but there's still so much love there and they want to keep going. But it just the fights just seem to go out of hand. And then if you're able to give them the tools and you see how they actually start to implement it and how the dynamic changes, and that's something that I find really, really beautiful and that really inspires me to keep going.
Yeah, because it's so true. Sometimes there can be so much love in a relationship, but they just don't
Mhm.
necessarily have the tools or the right tactics, or
Yeah,
maybe even just lack the communication skills to bring that to life in a really productive,
yeah.
um, happy way. So that's once again the
Mhm.
value in having a professional like yourself. So that's all the questions that I had for today. Wanted to thank you again for making the time to
Mhm.
chat. It's been so great to hear about your perspective on all these topics that we just discussed between independence, cultural boundaries, and just dating as a whole. So thank you so much for taking the time to share. And we're really excited to have the GoLove community be able to interact with you as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.